deleted email.
That's a good day at work. It's just deleting email.
That's because there's literally nothing to do at my job because they took all of the work away.
That's not so good. I'm sorry to hear that. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Ground Zero Salem, Ground Zero Mondays. We are once again not live.
Not live at all.
Not at all. But on the plus side, we have Eric Bauer here. Again, scheduling constraints. I get the feeling that probably I won't be actually streaming as much as I intended on Mondays. It's going to be a lot of these pre-recorded dailies and just kind of hanging out in the chat when it premieres live, which I'm totally fine with. If you feel a way about, sorry,
I'll be there.
Eric will be there. Yeah. If you feel a way about it, positive or negative, let me know in the comments or whatever. I like doing the live thing. I'll do it as much as I can, but I want to at least have the regularity of having one of these up every Monday that I can. I just need consistency in my life. I need structure. It's good for me. So here we are with Eric. You'll see this tomorrow. It's Sunday night right now. Eric Bauer, how have you been?
I've been all right, man. All things considered, work's a shit show, and my apartment situation is not getting any better. Going worse. But all that aside, I've been trying to stay. I don't want to say positive. We'll say not negative. How about that?
Okay.
I've been trying to stay optimistic. How about optimistic?
There you go.
Not skeptical about what the future of 2023 holds for this guy here. So all that aside, yeah, I've been doing okay.
You look great. I'm sure you've heard that plenty already, but
I hear I'm too skinny. Way more than you want. People think it's a compliment, but it's kind of not.
Yeah, so me, in my early 30s, I turned into a bit of a workout nut for a couple of years, and it was all calisthenics. But I lost 45 pounds, and I'm kind of in the medium of where I was then and the heaviest I've been right now, which I'm happy with. Trying to get back on some regular exercise. I've had a bunch of shit going on with the holidays and this distro thing I've started. Yeah. But when I lost that amount of weight, I lost it quickly because I was straight edge at the time. It was pretty easy to do,
right?
Not drinking beer or anything. And I think I think I looked great, but I had people being like, that happened really fast. Are you okay? And I'm just like, God damn it. It's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of scenario. And I do understand, people are, sometimes you do lose a lot of weight for the wrong reason. And it's cool that people try to be sensitive towards that and everything.
I'm not on crystal meth, if that's the question, right?
Yeah.
Because that's been a concern previously in my life.
Right.
But especially midway in, into my journey of what I'm doing right now, as far as my health goes, was getting it a lot, and I know what I'm doing. I'm okay. Yeah. I swear. I'm down 65 pounds from this time last year. Which I don't think is crazy. That's 1 year, that's not really overnight,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess in my situation years ago, I mean, God damn, that was 13 years ago or something now. It was fast. It was 3.5 months or something that I lost 40 pounds.
That's not an insignificant amount of time. When I started, I was doing keto, so
right.
I guess a bunch of it did come off pretty quick.
Yeah.
But it's not I went into it half cocked or whatever. I did my research. I knew what I was doing, and I knew how long I was doing it for. Most importantly, I knew I wasn't going into it to do it for an extended duration of time, which I think fucks with a lot of people when they're trying to adhere to a diet like that for too long, especially keto.
Yeah.
Where you're depriving your body of shit that it actually needs, and it's only sustainable for so long before it does actually become unhealthy.
And
if you're not supervised by a doctor or a nutritionist.
Right. And like, I think I probably, I mean, I'm still on very, very low carbs myself. But
I'm low carb still, but
I'm not really, I try to keep it under 50 generally. And like at least a couple of days a week under 20 or 25.
you're doing more. You're devoting more attention to it. Like I said, I'm still trying to stay low carb, but not that low carb.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but the thing is with me is like, it's kind of a, because I still like, it's in White Claw form, you know, and wine, but I still like, you know, I still consume alcohol a fair amount. So it's kind of like, you know,
I'm on the blood thinner, so I got to pick and choose my booze.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's fair enough. I mean, you know, you had some health stuff going on. So but you look the healthiest I think I've seen you, period.
I feel good.
In my opinion.
All the health drama aside, from last fall, I feel pretty good.
Yeah,
for the most part. Got a lot of energy. I still have occasional residual symptoms from the pulmonary embolism, almost stroke back in October, but as according to my doctor, that could be ongoing for the rest of my life. Like as far as like the tiny symptoms here and there pop up every once in a while, but as long as I am adhering to the sort of diet and consumption of whatever, imbibing, we will say, minimal, it should be fine. I think. I don't know. It's like, when we put me on the blood thinners, I was like, well, I don't really know how to ask this without sounding like an alcoholic. So I'm just going to ask it to sound like an alcoholic. Can I drink on blood thinners? Knowing most doctors are going to tell you no, but I have a pretty good rapport with my doctor. And, he looked at all my kidney function and liver function and all that to just determine like how good that stuff was in the first place. He was like, well, I don't see any problem with like a drink now and then. But that's not licensed to get fucked up, like, whenever. Like, I'm not that guy anymore these days. I swear.
Can't be, and it's, I mean, it's not good for your quality of life anyway. Like,
says you. No, I'm just
kidding. It's not. I'm not saying I'm not being a bold-faced.
Also, not sustainable. Ultimately, like
right, exactly.
I've got some friends that are figuring that out after, how old am I? Almost 47 at this point. So, after as many years figuring out that kind of activity is not sustainable for the long term if you want to stay healthy.
I mean, most people that I know that were pretty hardcore are like in recovery, or they've dialed it back quite a bit, or regularly have like long periods of sobriety to kind of, right the ship, which is what I do usually. Like a couple times a year, I do go a whole month with.
Yeah, I'll go. A few days to a week, sometimes two, depends.
Yeah.
I'm not drinking to get fucked up anymore. So it's like,
exactly.
What's missing a bunch of nights in a row going to really like do to me ultimately? Like, I'm not a real adult if I can't enjoy a real adult beverage at the end of my day.
Exactly. It's true. Yeah.
Anyhow.
So what's your apartment deal? You said I wasn't aware of any, because one of my questions I actually wrote down, just as a talking point, something to just kind of chew the fat about, was like, how long have you been at that spot? Because as long as I've known you, I think you've been shooting vids out of that apartment.
Yeah, I moved into this apartment in 2015. So pushing 8 years in this location. And when I moved in, it was right after my first divorce, and it was just kind of the first place that I could get for about the price that I wanted to spend every month. And after 8 years, that price is is a lot higher now than it was then. Too much, in fact. Like this is, I think I have roughly about, I want to say maybe 600 square feet. So it's not big, and it's not cheap either. So, basically with like rent increases and whatnot, I'm certain that with the next lease, they're probably going to crank up the rent another $100-200 a month, if I had to guess, because that's what they did last year. I'm not gonna be able to afford it ultimately, especially if my job's going away, which I'm fairly confident that 2 months time I'm not going to be employed at the same place where I've been for the last 16 years. 16 years today, in fact.
16 years, goddamn.
Today, that job's going to be gone in 2 months max. So I've got to like make some changes, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
So on top of looking at prospective job types, I've also been looking for new places to live, which is two of my favorite things to do, actually, at the same time.
It's like that. There's that whole joke trope it's getting kind of overdone. That meme about like local bands always saying big things coming.
Right.
Like, you really do have big things coming. They're not necessarily
not good big things.
It's not a like 3 songs on Bandcamp or whatever.
Like, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's a lot. It's stressful, but you know, like I know that you haven't been happy at that gig in like quite a while.
No,
you know,
I'm right. Change is gonna be good. I'm trying to embrace it and to, like I said, stay optimistic about it.
Yeah.
And not have an anxiety attack every day when it comes to the thought of having to uproot myself and change my profession after 16 years of doing the same thing.
Sure.
Every single day. So yeah, that's sad. So I'm looking. I'm thinking about, I don't know, pretty big change, I guess. Like I'm looking in places like Vancouver, Washington.
Okay.
And I'm in Seattle. It's about a 3-hour drive. It's just north of Portland, Oregon. So, I've got some of my best friends living in Portland right now, and I don't really want to live outside of Washington per se. The cost of living in Vancouver is excessively cheaper than it is where I'm at right now. So we're talking about probably a rent drop of $400 to $500 a month.
That's a good thing.
Which is some savings,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially if you have friends there. Like,
yeah, it's basically a suburb of Portland, where there's so much there's so much bullshit in Portland. Everything crappy in Seattle is also crappy in Portland, but Portland has the benefit of having like 10 more record stores in Seattle and a lot more awesome places to eat than Seattle has. So, and just like a change.
Yeah,
we'll see. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I mean,
80-20, I think, at this point, in terms of like, am I going to do it or am I going to stay?
Towards the 80 is the moving.
80's leaving.
80's leaving. Yeah.
The bonus is that if it's Vancouver, or even if I cross the border into Oregon, say like Portland or Gresham or Beaverton or whatever, Lake Oswego, anywhere around down there, it's like a 3.5 hour drive from here. So I'm still close to friends up here and family up here. So
yeah, it's that whole area is relatively, it's not like going from San Francisco to LA or anything. Like, it's not that bad.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what kind of, I think that's like a 6 or 8 hour drive, something like that.
It's long. I mean, I did it once, like the first time I ever went cross country. We met this kid in Chicago because we were going to hop trains and all that stuff. And
yeah.
And we were in the train yard, me and my friend
Shane. Punk limo.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I don't care how much of a poser or house punk this makes me. I'm never gonna do this. This is a very bad idea.
House punk.
And well, it was a thing. Like, I don't know
I remember the term, dude. I remember the term.
Yeah, it was a big.
You're a house punk.
Yeah, like I like
You're
Shelter.
from the suburbs.
I like Shelter, the band, and the actual structure of a house.
4 walls, it's a roof. Are you kidding? That sounds like heaven.
Well, that was like my first time out of Syracuse, and I was in Harvard Square, and it was like Harvard Square was one of those hangout spots, and I'm sure you had a similar deal in Seattle.
Yeah, where a place called Red Square in the University of Washington.
Yeah, like it was like Runaways would go there, like punks, ravers, whatever, and yeah, we randomly met this kid who was like real weird, and I could tell because I had a pretty good bullshit detector. I was like, this kid's making shit up. I think he's a pathological liar. Talking about how he knew how to hop trains and stuff, and we're in the train yard, and I'm just like, no, I don't think
anyone can do it.
So we took a bus to Chicago, where a friend of mine that was a couple of years ahead of me in high school was living, and ended up going to a punk house in the suburbs in Waukegan, and met this kid who was like, oh yeah, I got this ancient Chevy Suburban. I'm going to drive out to San Francisco to just kind of try to see if I can get a job and live. And I was like, okay. My friend Liz lives out there. Let's go. And we drove across from Chicago and into, through New Mexico, and ended up in Pasadena, crashing the night at his grandmother's house, literal little old lady from Pasadena, and and drove all the way up Highway 1. And then ended up in San Francisco, and like, yeah, it's a long ass drive, especially because that was one of those old ass. It was like a late 70s Chevy Suburban. It didn't go over 60 miles an hour. Like,
no AC.
No.
Yeah, I imagine that'd be a kind of a nightmare drive for sure.
It was scary driving up Highway 1 because I wasn't that experienced of a driver yet. Like, I didn't get my license till I was 20 that year, and like it was this massive boat of like a vehicle, and then driving into San Francisco, like, which is a fairly trafficy city and hilly too. I'm
San Francisco.
I had some pretty bad like panic attacks like that time, but
I went down there for Fiesta Grande. Like 98, I want to say, maybe 99. I remember Death Threat played. I think Logical Nonsense played.
Oh, so jealous.
There are a lot of bands, man. And I don't remember about half of them, but I didn't really spend a lot of time in like San Francisco proper. It was mostly spent in like Berkeley and Oakland for the most part.
Same. I spent a lot of time. I stayed in Oakland and hung out in Berkeley. I mean, we went to Haight Street and all that kind of shit just to check it out.
Yeah.
And the one show that I saw there was Spaz and Melt Banana at the Gilman. But I had to leave before Melt Banana played. Like, I can't remember why, but my ride was leaving whenever. I don't remember the situation because it was ages ago. But I did get to see Spaz once, and they were kind of at the height of their powers. Like, they just came out with Crush, Kill, Destroy.
I want to say Spaz maybe played. I think Medication Time, the Dystopia side project, played.
I have a good segue for that, but go ahead.
Yeah, it was cool. I took the train down there, and I stayed at the Y on Embarcadero in San Francisco proper.
How was that?
Because that's what I could afford. I only stayed one night. I ended up running into friends at Gilman from here, and they were staying with. They were in a band. And they were staying with some another friend, band friends that they knew that were living out in San Jose. So I met up with them in Berkeley the next day, and then we just kind of hung out. And I stayed with them in San Ho for like the next 2 nights before we drove back up here. And then I got pneumonia on the drive back up here and almost died that week. So,
oh Jesus! Oh yeah, I remember you telling me that story. That sucks.
yeah.
Glad you're okay.
Good time.
I think Dennis is from San Jose originally, and
that tracks.
Analog Attack, or Analog Archives rather.
Yeah.
Analog Attack is the nice.
That's Mike,
the nice British man that lives in Japan.
Right. Right.
But no, because I know that because Dennis is really good friends with my buddy Jonathan, who's lived in Syracuse forever, who played in like The Promise and Another Victim and a bunch of other bands, and I'm pretty sure Jonathan talked about being from San Jose a lot. But funny you should mention Medication Time. I've never heard.
They're great. Really kind of weird, like almost like unsettling hardcore, like kind of like a crustier Dead and Gone.
Okay, I can get down with that. And there was somebody from that involved in Nigel Peppercock too, I think, right? Have you ever?
I don't know Nigel Peppercock.
It was I still like it was members of them and Dystopia. There that whole like universe of people. I think, but it was like this kind of jokey band, but they sounded like Dystopia and Medication Time, but they had this like, it was like a guy, a very kind of like sexily dressed, like jean shorts guy with a mustache. And that was like Nigel Peppercock. I just remember seeing it they were on Life is Abuse.
Great name. That's a great name.
Yeah.
For a band.
Life is Abuse was a really cool label. Like the Tarantula Hawk record. I really like that too.
I had a lot of like that Life is Abuse and Common Cause shit. Like ABC Diablo fucking 16 was on that label.
Yep.
Before Relapse snatched them up.
There are a lot of
I didn't know anything about Medication Time until they actually came up here, and they played a show with my roommates at the time's band, and Damad, which was like, I want to say it's like pre-Kailisa. Yeah. And you know, I would like roadie every time my roommates played. So Medication Time was like, oh shit, that's fucking Dino Samis from Dystopia, and a couple, like one of the other guys from Dystopia was in that band. Super rad, man. Really, really cool show.
So let me ask you this. A component of this thing that I'm doing, this Monday thing.
Okay.
I do want to actually put this on Podbean or something at some point.
Podbean.
Or as a podcast or whatever.
Yeah.
One component of it, and I don't mean, I almost want to say like, I don't want to rip off Analog Attack because it's the whole is like, what are you listening to thing, but like,
right.
Playlists have kind of been a thing for a long time.
Yeah.
But like, you know, generally like, what have you been into? Not just music, but like movies or whatever. But one thing that I wanted to bring up, because it kind of segues nice into this. Have you heard this record? Skewed Riff.
No.
So this is an international project with one guy whose name I'm terrible with names from I believe Medication Time and Skaven.
Okay.
And two guys living in Poland that I think I'd have to pull up the Discogs, but I think it's two guys from Hiatus.
Okay.
Or Unhinged.
Hiatus though were Belgian.
Let me take a look because I do not have the photographic memory for this, but I know that it's like a project band, really good, brutal crust, like lapses into like more punky, like street punky territory, almost kind of, or like more kind of like polka beat, D beat kind of stuff, but very heavy at the same time. But it gets like pretty metallic and apocalyptic too.
I mean, it sounds like something I could, get down.
Oh, you'd love it. You'd love it.
I got a good beat that I can dance to.
Yes, exactly. You can tap your toes. Now it's driving me crazy because I wanted to say Hiatus, but I could be totally wrong. But it's definitely like one of those bands that like weren't part of the whole Bradford Leeds thing, but I think we're on Flat Earth.
Oh yeah, like
I think they're from elsewhere in Europe. I mean,
would it be like Unhinged and fucking?
Yeah, they were down with that. They were down with Sned.
Sned. Hey, he performed on one of my favorite albums of 2022.
He did. What album was that?
I can't pronounce their name properly.
Okay.
It's like Minin Kyalu or something like that. Like it's like this 3-piece, like almost krautrocky, sort of like drone desert rock type.
Oh, interesting.
Band.
Okay.
Really, really cool shit. Yeah, you were right. Hiatus.
Yep, Hiatus, and two guys from Hiatus. This guy Ross, who that was in. I like his Discogs page is great. But he was in Skaven, whatever, Medication Time. Those two bands primarily, it seems, and then like a bassist from the UK that hadn't been in anything else of note, apparently, because there's nothing
Right.
and Discogs just named Nico. So
okay, Mina Kunaru, that's their name.
Mina Kunaru. Okay, yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, fucking killer. Anyway,
and then I also, because I went on this little bit of a cheap Discogs binge like 3 months ago, where I was like, man, there's like that flat Earth stuff and a bunch of like crusty shit that this one seller has, and it's all cheap. And I remember it being pretty good from like a compilation.
That's the beauty of like that 90s crust stuff, is that so much of it is still cheap.
Yeah, this is great. Witch Not, Squawk. It's like feminist, kind of folky anarcho punk stuff.
New one to me as well.
Really cool. Yeah, like a lot of like kind of pagan inspired, you know, anarcho feminist, like mellow. You know, it's kind of almost post punk, kind of folky. And I didn't grab it, but the generic discography, I think it's a discography LP as well, which is really cool. I've spun that recently, and I've had the Witch Knot and the generic. I've had in my stack, my listen to stack, for like 2.5 months and haven't spun. I finally, I think I was packing up orders for the distro, and I was like, man, I need to listen to these. What the fuck is wrong with me? So I did, and they're both great. So that's my story. What have you been listening to?
A lot. So let's see. Just recently picked this up because it was a gap missing from my collection. That'd be this Dead Moon. Nervous Sooner Changes. Probably my second favorite Dead Moon. Really, really like this album. It's fucking great. But I mean, when it comes to Dead Moon, honestly, you can't really go wrong with anything.
Yeah.
It's just all so consistently good. A lot of it sounds kind of the same, but I mean, you know, that could be said about a lot of projects out there. I think with Dead Moon, what really like gets me is like the heart that they put into everything that they put out.
Oh, absolutely.
Regardless of how similar it sounds. Really fucking good record though. I like that one a lot. And then I picked this up. This was a recommend from shop kind of close to me called Hex Induction. Really good terms with the people who work there, and one of the guys kind of knows my taste pretty well, and so he was pointing me towards some stuff, and he recommended this band, the Crazies.
Okay.
This is a recording from 1978. And
year you were born.
It's got 2 years after I was born. It's got members of The Sound, the post-punk band from UK from the 80s, the Outsiders, who were pre-The Sound, Honolulu Mountain Daffodils, which was like a weird, like short-lived project that kind of predated all that stuff as well. Adrian Borland is on this. He, I think, as far as what most punks would probably know him for, was he was on that Witch Trials record with Jello Biafra and Christian Lynch.
Oh, yeah.
He also killed himself by stepping in front of a train off of a train platform in the 90s, I think, late 90s, I want to say. This is really good stuff, though. It's really weird, like sometimes like post-punky, but like always like kind of outsiderish, a little abrasive and like subversive a lot of time. A lot of like elements of drone here and there. It's a weird listen, but it's really fucking good, man. Like just as taken as a whole, it's like if I put on the A side, this record's gonna play all through the A side, and I'm gonna flip it and play the B side, and I might flip it back and do it all over again after it's over. It's really good. But yeah, the Crazies, A Simple Vision. Simply put, like, I don't know if you like weird post-punk.
I do.
Like the weirder side of post-punk, as opposed to like the safe shit, like say like maybe like a more slowed down, stoned version of like Rebella Ballet or something like that kind of.
Rebella Ballet, sure. Yeah.
So that's been a big list, the big one. I picked this up. This was an Aaron Margosian, metal theologian, recommend. Tarot by Walter Wegmuller. This is like it's a reissue of this. I think came out in '73 originally. want to say it's been reissued like once before. This was reissued late last year on I can't think of the name of the label, but it was a label that I believe was run by Manuel Gottsching of Asherah Temple, Cosmic Jokers, who just passed away last year, at the end of last year. Anyway, a bunch of that Cosmic Jokers related stuff got reissued at the end of the year on that label, and this is one of them. And Aaron, knowing my taste when it comes to like krautrock, was like, you need to get that record. It's like a no-brainer. And he was right. It's killer. It's double LP, just phenomenal, just awesome, whacked out weirdo shit. But like, it's always got like kind of like a cool groove to it, like very spacey. It's good stuff, man. That's been getting a lot of play. This T-Rex tanks.
Nice.
Been getting a lot of play. I'm not going to say much about this. I mean, it's T-Rex, it's tanks. Get into it. I pulled this off the shelf, and I've been listening to this a whole lot, especially the B side. This Apostles record.
Oh, okay. The anarcho-punk Apostles.
Yeah, the anarcho-punk, the controversial anarcho-punk band.
Were they? Why were they controversial?
Maximum Rock and Roll called them neo-Nazis in a review of one of their albums, and it's funny because there's actually a letter to Maximum Rock and Roll included in the liner notes in this, and it's fucking long.
I'm sure.
I read it, very verbose, and he basically calls them out for not even like reading the lyrics to the album that they criticized.
Yep.
Because if you go into the lyrics, you would notice that it is in fact not a pro-Nazi record. It is actually very anti-Nazi record. Anyway, this is, I want to say, their last full-length record. I could be wrong. They put out a bunch of stuff on like Mortar Hate Records.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Who actually didn't have a lot of scruples when it came to some of that stuff, because they put out a couple sketchy bands as well. Like there was a anarcho punk band called like AYS.
Admit your shit.
Yeah, they were sketchy for sure.
I don't know if they were in the beginning, but one of those guys definitely really went off like the NF deep end, at some point during their career, I think, and it just kind of permanently tarnished their name. The funny thing about the Apostles is, I think he was a member of the band. Rat is the only link between the anarcho-punk movement and the vegan straight edge hardline movement.
Oh.
There weren't a lot of hardline bands when that movement was around. I don't think we probably got exposed to that much being in Seattle, but
probably not.
Growing up in Syracuse, there were not a lot. There were hardline.
Then we had like Trial and Brotherhood and like that kind of stuff.
All those bands were really like Trial were I mean, Greg Bennett's a pretty left leaning.
Undertow. We had Undertow
too. Like, this is like, I'm not talking about just veganism and straight edge and like
No, you're talking like scorched earth type shit, like
basically eco-fash kind of shit. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm one of those people who like threw craft singles at Earth Crisis when they toured here.
Yeah. You weren't the only one. Like, they dealt with that bullshit a lot.
From people like me, and my friends in high school. Yeah,
it was definitely a thing. That's why those guys got really good at fighting people. But anyways, the whole hardline thing. I mean, it was such a weird pre-internet or like early internet, like just odd like social movement that could only happen in the mid 90s. It started out of Memphis, believe it or not. Memphis and like Indiana, like in 91.
I could believe that.
Yeah, it's pretty believable. Yeah. But there was like Green Rage from Syracuse. There was who else? Green Rage were actually one of the not as well known or well regarded hardline. Oh, Vegan Reich, of course.
Vegan Reich. Oh, I think they may have come here actually back.
Maybe Statement from Memphis.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Statement.
There are only like 4 or 5 hardline bands,
right?
But then there was Statement was from the UK. I mean,
Okay.
Raid was from Memphis. Statement was a one-man project. Musically, kind of rips. Like, sounds a lot like Teutonic thrash. Like,
Okay. All right.
it's like that early metalcore that before it got tainted by overproduction and like melodic vocals.
I'm gonna check this stuff out probably tomorrow while the work is supposed to be happening. So
so Statement's full length is called Genocidal Justice.
nice.
And it's all, you know, it's all about
It's got a good ring to it.
Just, you know, basically pro-life and killing people that aren't vegan and that kind of stuff. But like Rat was an anarcho-punk, and he apparently really wasn't cool with the whole pro-life thing, I guess, like when he met other hardliners, but he was so devoted to like the ALF and thought that hardline was so important that he was just like, Americans with their whole abortion thing, I don't know. Like the veganism thing, I'm really behind.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, the movement was like a bunch of like kids, like they were probably all like 18 to 21.
I feel like that's the age for that kind of a movement. Like,
oh, really, for sure. Yeah. There's, you know, that was just like a big thing, but like it's kind of funny because it's weird how there's just that one weird link, and it's like a guy that I don't even know if he's on that record or if he was just like a live member or whatever, but yeah, Rat. He was he was in the Apostles, and he was in Statement. And he was Statement. It was like his baby
on this record. This record's got Andy Martin. He was like the primary Apostles guy. And then you got Boo Radley, Dave Fanning, and Sean Stokes. Because I know that the rest of the Apostles lineup beyond Andy Martin, I think maybe Sean Stokes kind of changed from album to album on occasion. But this record's great, man. Like it's super weird. Like it's that like weirdo anarcho punk that like I really, really dig, where like sometimes it borders on like almost folkish, kind of like that Crisis sort of vibe. It's probably a pretty good comparison. Or like Karma Sutra would be like another comparison.
I gotta pick that reissue up of that Karma Sutra record one of these days.
Really good. But this record's killer. It just, I love it. I don't know. I'm late to the band. And you know, I remember hearing about a lot of like controversy when it came to this band. I'm glad I did my due diligence in researching what that controversy was, because now I can enjoy them and not worry about what I'm supporting.
Right. And that was unfortunately, I mean, MRR obviously were an institution and a cornerstone of punk, but there was a lot of that kind of like Tim Yo having a weird one.
Yeah, it was his review too. It was a Tim Yohannan review. Yeah.
There's that whole beef between him and Agnostic Front. And I think with Agnostic Front, I mean, and this is speaking as a guy who has an Agnostic Front tattoo, like they might have been a little bit more closer to, you know, saying that like they were kind of right-wing dudes or something.
Sure. I mean, we can look at the lyrics to social services and
public assistance.
Sorry. And
well, that was even before that. Like a lot of that stuff on that record was like a reaction and kind of like an edgelord fuck you kind of to MRR.
Yeah.
Like when this was like United Blood and Victim in Pain era AF, and they were just like, I think they just like saw skinhead dudes and were kind of like, these guys are Nazis, and they're like, no, we're not. Like,
dude, you didn't see that as commonly on the West Coast, like even into like the 90s. Like it was like rare, honestly, that you would see like a large group of skins really anywhere. Like they would only come out to certain shows for certain bands, and it didn't, like even the Sharps were kind of stayed like sequestered away when it came to like being on the West Coast, at least up here. I don't know about like, I'm assuming Portland was probably a little similar, but I don't know so much about like, say, SF or LA or San Diego. But
it seems I nerd out on that, like that whole culture, because the people that were involved in it like seemed to be really into chronicling it. Seems like it was huge in like the big cities of the Midwest. Like it was big in Chicago. It was big in Minnesota. It was big in Minneapolis. It was huge in New York, huge in Boston. I want to say I read a bunch of those books. Like you read that book, that Disco's Out, Murder's In book.
Yeah.
It seems like the skinhead contingent was in the mix, like getting in brawls with the psycho, Suicidos and all that stuff that was going on in LA in the early 80s.
Yeah.
But LA is such a like finger on the pulse of like whatever hip culture is. So I feel
like
it's
bigger,
huge. So I feel like a lot of people that were like part of like one subculture, you know, for a couple years cycled out and were into something else fairly quickly. I do know that like there were a fair amount of like traditional skins in Portland, because there's a really big Nazi problem, and they tended to get in fights like in the 90s, especially like especially in Chicago too. I've read about a lot of like bad shit going.
Yeah, we get Nazis out here. They'd come over from we had two places where they would come from. They would come from Priest Lake, Idaho. Was probably the most common epicenter for white power people to come out to Seattle, and then Wenatchee, Washington, which is just over the pass from where we're at. It's like maybe a 2-hour drive from here, give or take. Big centers for white power out there in the 90s as well. Usually, though, during most of the year, they just stay there. You know, like I said, they'd come out for shows, really, like, and occasionally they do like you know, like a fucking like a rally or something like that like would get the people out and, you know, cause the cops to come and cause the punks to show up and throw bottles and shit and fucking, you know, the fun shit that happened in the 90s that you don't really hear about so much these days.
Great times. Yeah. It was upstate was really weird because there was a whole bunch of them in Rochester and Buffalo that came out and caused problems a lot. And we usually tussle with like straight edge kids, like they'd just brawl. And then there was an army base that was about an hour from Syracuse up near the Canadian border that had a bunch of like, calling them skinheads even was like kind of a stretch, even if they were Nazis. Like they were like Pantera skins, essentially, like, you know, like flat top haircuts and like tucked in boots, you know, that kind of thing. And
I saw Pantera tour for the Vulgar Display of Power tour. Where they opened for Trouble. Trouble opened for Pantera. Trouble was touring for Manic Frustration.
I like that record.
I left a bigger fan of Trouble and not a fan of Pantera, really.
Yeah.
But there were a bunch of fucking white power skins at that show, dude. Like there was a dude with a huge tri-hawk, and he took his shirt off and he had this giant just Nazi eagle tattooed on his back, with like hammer skins like tattooed on there somewhere, something like that. I don't remember what the subsect of skin culture was that he had tattooed on him, but it was very clearly like an eagle with fucking swastikas in its talons on his back. It took up his whole back. I'm like, that is not something you just get covered up when you turn into an adult. And it's going to be a lot of sessions of covering that shit up if you fucking regret it.
A bunch of those army base guys came and completely ruined a Descendants show. I was like, why are you guys here? Like,
yeah, dude, when I went to see Sick of It All, with the openers for the Sick of It All show that I saw were Orange 9mm and Korn. This was before anybody had ever heard of Korn.
Yep.
I think it was before their first album had even dropped. There were fucking white power dudes at that show.
Yeah.
For Sick of It All and like two like new metal bands. Like it was weird, dude. Like
they didn't really care about, like, I mean, those guys, they got away with like kind of ruining that one Descendant show, but every time they came after that, they got their asses kicked. They all came to an All Out War show that was like at a second floor of it was like formerly a coffee shop, but it was, you know, it was like 150 cap, like it was a decent size place. And there was like two of them, and they were like pushing people around and trying to start fights. They didn't know anybody. It's not like they were rolling deep. There were like two or three of them, and a couple of friends of mine who will remain nameless, like basically just Jazzy Jeff them down the flight of stairs, like, you know, like just tossed them, you know, like I'm gonna get you sucker style, and like just threw them down the stairs. Awesome. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't miss that. There's rampant fascism now, but at least it's not interrupting my shows. What's that all about?
Smart pills.
Yeah.
More anarcho-punk. This is well, it's got a member of Hawkwind in it.
Interesting.
And then I want to say, let's see if it. So some of the people on this were also involved in the Subhumans, and would go on to do like I think Zygote. I think one of the guys in this did Zygote.
Oh, yeah.
And then Cross Stitched Eyes, I think, also ended up coming out of this band. It's more post-punk than anarcho-punk. Kind of sits at that like mob point of anarcho-punk. It's also kind of goth. So like I guess the mob meets UK Decay would be like a good reference for it. It's really good. Really good. It's an early Blurg record, which was Dick from Subhumans label, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm sure I know of other artists other than the Subhumans somewhere in my brain that were on that label. Well, now I know them, but
Instigators.
There we go. I was like, what the hell else is on Blurg other than the Subhumans?
Although it's funny, like that I have that Instigators record too. It's down here. I have been listening to it quite a bit, but not as much since picking up that. There's an address on here, and let's see. So yeah, Semi on vocals, Mooney on guitars, Tab on bass, Hammy on drums. We all know who Hammy is.
Yes. Good old Hammy of Peaceville Records.
Fuck, where is it? Oh, here we go. The address, if you want to write to them, is Peaceville Conglomerates, 5th Street, Michael's Close. For this Instigators record. So I thought that was kind of funny. That was a funny little tidbit.
Yeah, because I read that whole book, Hammy's book about Peaceville, and did he start it the same way Dig did? I don't remember, because there's that like grant that you could apply for to start a business in the UK. I
wouldn't be shocked. I never read the book, so I don't know. But that's a lot more vinyl than that. And then I've been addicted to some tapes. Big surprise. I found these at a local shop, which I think was kind of a score. That's this Sound record. It's the second record by the Sound. From the Lion's Mouth, killer, just awesome post-punk goth. I don't know why this band didn't get more popular than they did. Like, I don't want to say that it should have been up there with with God damn it.
Come into focus.
I don't want to say it should have been up there with like Joy Division, but I kind of feel like with this album, at least, maybe they should have been. Like, this is a killer record.
Okay.
And then Same Place had the first Creatures cassette, the Feast record, which is Susie and what's his name? Her partner from Susie and the Banshees.
I don't remember. I will eventually, I'm sure, like give Susie and the Banshees like the treatment, but I really only know the hits. Did she do a project? She did a project with Robert Smith though, right? Like the Glove. Was that?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. This is about, I think, the only thing outside of the Susie and the Banshees that I know of with her involved. And this record's great, man. It's just like really weird, like almost like world music.
Okay.
It's like experimental. Like there's no guitar on this album at all. It's all like percussion and like chanting. It's musical. It's very psychedelic, which I really like. Like this is a good fucking like drug record right here. Like if you're into like microdosing or fucking LSD, one of those people that still does LSD, like you're that analog. That'd be a good record for that. And then in the mail, I picked up this Red Temple Spirits, their first cassette. I'm trying to buy everything on this Fundamental Records label, or related to that label, like Nate Starkman and Son label, because they did like really like impressive like packaging press. They like did all the printing presses, or they ran a printing press basically. Like same people put out like freaking Savage Republic. All their records were put out by the same label, but like really well printed stuff, and it's all like in that like weird like goth industrial post-punk sort of realm. Red Temple Spirits had a guy from that band Psycom, the pre-Jane's Addiction band from with Perry Farrell, was in it, but really good. You could compare it to like The Cult, probably, like an American The Cult, maybe. A little bit more psychedelic than that, a little trippier. Good shit.
Excuse me.
I did pick up the Peel Sessions from Susie because
those are really good.
It's got Love and Avoid, and that's, it sounds stereotypical, but that's like my favorite Susie track is Love and Avoid.
And that version, the Peel Sessions version of that song is fucking great.
Yeah. And then The Nephilim by Fields of the Nephilim on cassette.
Awesome. I just got Dawn Razor on cassette, actually. I already owned it on vinyl, but I was like, I saw it in an eBay lot for relatively cheap, and I was like,
that's the only other Fields of the Nephilim record I've got is Dawn Razor on cassette. So but yeah, other than that, you know, music, movies, lots of movies, always.
okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
The glove is Robert Smith and Susie and the Banshees. 48 Hours.
Another 48 hours.
Another 40. I just watched a new Eddie Murphy movie last night, which is You People.
It You People? I've heard terrible things about that movie.
I was watching it and I really liked it and I thought it was really fun. But
I didn't really like Jonah Hill very much, so
I mean,
that's going to be a big miss for me. Like I like Superbad, and that's about it.
He's not reinventing himself as I don't know. I guess he was great in Wolf of Wall Street. I'd never seen that. But his whole style of humor, that like uncomfortable, you know, like stressed out, saying dumb shit, like he does that. Right. I am entertained when he does that. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I wasn't expecting anything, you know, other than like a Netflix movie with the people that were in it. But like a lot of the one-liners were maybe kind of cheap laughs, but they had me guffawing pretty hard. So, but it's no another 48 hours. There's nobody giving anybody the high hard one.
Oh man, another 48 hours. Like it's not 48 hours. Like I understand that, but I actually almost like another 48 hours better because it is just like a little bit trashier. Mm-hmm. It also has Andrew Divoff in it as one of the bad guys, the dude who plays the fucking Wishmaster.
He's great in Wishmaster.
As you wish. So good. And then I watched this last night. This was a good time at the movies. Contraband.
Nice.
1980 Italian exploitation film directed by Lucio Fulci. You know, director of Zombie and The Beyond. So imagine his sensibilities when it comes to gore in a movie about the mob, and that's what this is. It's wild.
I like his non-horror movies. I mean, I think what he did outside of horror doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah, I like Conquest.
Conquest is cool. Swords and Swords.
Conquest is cool, but it's hard to watch because there's so much like that. The lens is so smeary that it's just like, Jesus Christ.
It is kind of weird. I really like the spaghetti western that he did.
Oh yeah. The for the Apocalypse. Yeah.
For the Apocalypse. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was excellent.
That is a great film. I'm a big fan of that one as well. So what else did I watch recently? Oh, I watched this movie Baskin. It's a Turkish horror film from 2016.
You know, you mentioned that in the chat, and I was like, okay, I think I made a joke about Tiger King or something.
Yeah.
But after that, I saw it like in my different social media feeds, like people talking that up, like three or four people.
It's very wet.
Okay.
Which it's gross, dude. It's a gross, wet, bloody, gnarly horror movie that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's like they tried to make a Turkish version of Hellraiser, but with like an actual like decent budget and good practical effects. So it's not like Turkish Spider-Man or Turkish Star Wars,
Right.
but it makes about as much sense. But production value is really good, and like the visuals are just like super fucked up. Like it's pretty gnarly. It's not like The Void gnarly, but it's still pretty gnarly. It was pretty good. And then another really wet film that I watched recently is this movie The Kindred, which is a crazy like monster movie, science gone wrong sort of film. It has, is it Rod Steiger? I think Rod Steiger's in this as like the world's biggest asshole.
I remember that cover. Yeah, when did that come out?
Like 1990? No, 1987. Okay. 1987.
I remember seeing that on the shelves at Chimney Video.
Great monster movie, cool practical effects, lots of slime, lots of fucking just wet grossness. It's good. It's good. It's a fun time for sure. Stuff like that's been high on the watch list for sure. But that's been about it. I'm just trying to stay busy, getting out of the house. Like I actually went to a show last week. I went and saw Sun, which was cool to get out. Like
oh yeah. Got some brown note,
some live music again for a second. Like last show I went to was Reeks back in August, and I got COVID at that show, so I haven't been out to a show since then. Considering that COVID's what led to the pulmonary embolism, it's like I kind of want to like try and stay as healthy as possible.
Yeah, well, that's it looks like, I mean, was the Sun show was probably at a pretty decently sized venue, wasn't it?
Is that this place in Seattle called the Neptune Theater, which used to be a movie theater? And funny is that I've never seen a show there before. The last time I was there, it was still a movie theater. But they've been doing just shows for probably the last 4 years, maybe at this point. It's a pretty nice sized venue. One of the nice things about it is because it's a movie theater, was a movie theater, is that they have actual seating in the balcony. So you can go up to the balcony and actually sit if you want.
That's nice.
But like the ground floor or the floor seating is all, it's standing, but like it's at a slope, right? So like you can still see, because you're at an angle. So I didn't really think about that prior to going to see the band play, and upon getting there I was like, oh shit, that's a nice bonus. Like that means that like it doesn't really matter where you're standing like on the floor, because you can still see what's going on up on stage. It's pretty cool.
There's a place.
Sun's always reliable, man. Like they just put on a good show regardless. Like you have to be you have to be in the mood for that. Like I'm not always in the mood for a sunset, but when I am, like it sunset. Right. Yeah, sunset. Oh.
I mean, never really been my thing. I just can't. But I did. Speaking of theaters and like that kind of vibe, I went and what was the show? It was after driving like all day and getting like no sleep. Seems to be a theme with me. But this was early to mid 2000s in Buffalo. Same deal. Theater, slanted. There's seating, and it was Yezu and
shit.
Yezu
and that tour.
Oh God, who was the other band?
Was it ISIS?
No, and not Floor, the band after Floor. I'm totally spacing on that.
Torch?
Yeah, Torch. Yeah, Yezu and Torch.
Oh, rad! That would have been a killer show.
And, yeah, like I've never owned a Torch record, but they are fucking fantastic live. Great live band, super
Torch
loud.
Like, I used to call Torch like the Van Halen of stoner rock.
Very apt. Very apt.
Yeah, I have their Neanderthal record, which is great. Like it's the only Torch record I own. I don't really like their later stuff as much, but like the first like 3-4 records are fucking killer.
Yeah, their early stuff was good. I don't know.
Back when they were on Robotic Empire, pre relapse.
But Yezu, I was very tired, and they were good. You know, Justin Broderick knows.
Right. Well, it's like, do you really need to see Godflesh doing post punk? Like,
well, the long story long, I fell asleep because I had again running on fumes, much like I am now, and I was in a nice theater seat, and it was just like this nice sonic womb,
right,
of fuzziness. You know, this
I know that vibe here.
This chorus pedal blanket. It's like, you know, drum machine and chorus pedal blanket.
That sounds like a pretty good description of what I know Yezu to sound like.
Yeah.
I just put this away, but I've been listening to this a lot lately as well, which is stellar. Not enough people talk about this project. Head of David with
you know, one of those ones where like I remember reading about them in Thrasher like in 90 or something, and I know it's Justin Broderick. He's
on Justin Broderick on drums. Steve Albini produced the record. It came out in 87, so it's
so it was before he was in Napalm Death.
Pre-Napalm. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's got the track Dog Day Sunrise, which is like about the only reason most people know this record, because Fear Factory covered it on Demanufacture. Great cover. Like, they did a really good job of that song.
I mean, early like Fear Factory up to Demanufacture were really good, and they did really good covers.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, that's why I know about this record, was because of that cover. When I bought Demanufacture when it came out, it's like it really fit in well with basically what I was listening to at the time, which was like Pitch Shifter, Desensitized, Godflesh, Pure, and like a bunch of like Bill Lieb and like Reese Fulber associated projects, like Frontline Assembly, fucking Protech, Unit 187, like that type of stuff. Decree was another big one. So, you know, it fit in really well. So yeah, I picked up Demanufacture and I sought this out. I managed to find a copy back in the day, which was not as easy to do. You know, this is not that same copy, but this was another one. I looked into this in the wild, actually, like not an online purchase. But at any rate, this is just front to back a killer record.
Yeah, I need to see that.
And it has a lot of like like a lot of what I think Broderick would like revisit post Godflesh when like starting Yezu in the early 2000s. I think he was maybe reflecting on this record quite a bit, because there's a lot of like eerie like post-punk leanings on this record, as well as a lot of like industrial cacophony, like as anything produced by Steve Albini would hint at being. But really good.
It's crazy to see, like, I never really, I mean, I got into Killing Joke pretty early. I want to say I knew who they were because of Metallica covering The Weight, of course. But I mean, I had my big goth industrial phase like my senior year of high school, and I didn't really get into them then, but I happened across a 2-on-1 cassette of the self-titled and What's This For when I was probably 22.
I think I had that same cassette.
Yeah. And I listened to it into the ground and loved it. And I didn't really fully grasp the magnitude of their influence on a lot of UK acts, obviously, but kind of everywhere too, like Amoebics and, you know, like industrial at large, really. But like a lot, all that, there's so much of that anarcho-punk stuff, the Napalm Death demos, you know, like that's like just heavily wears that Killing Joke influence on that sleeve. Like,
what that Head of David, like at times sounds like fucking Killing Joke meets New Model Army meets fucking Amoebics, like straight up, or Axe Grinder, like the more industrial elements of Axe Grinder on that record. Like,
well, sign me up then, because that sounds like my cup of tea.
It's rad. It's a great record.
Did Fear Factory cover New Model Army too, or am I thinking of Anacrusis?
Sepultura covered New Model Army.
Okay, well, Sepultura covered the Hunt.
Yep.
But it was either Anacrusis or Fear Factory that covered I Love the World.
That was Anacrusis, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember hearing that cover and being like, what the fuck is this? Like, like thrash band doing, and like,
I love that song, man. It's so
I love
good.
that song now, but at the time I really didn't get it. I mean,
I'm gonna grab a drink real quick.
you go right ahead. I'm gonna sit here and I don't want to edit this out, so I'm just gonna talk by myself here. I'm gonna limbog it or do what I do when I actually just make videos.
Raw dog.
Eric's gone.
So I got this.
Get the new Mally.
This is like a new type of drink that I discovered at my local grocery store. What is that?
The new Malleus.
Oh, nice. Oh shit! I have to get that.
I'll be carrying it soon in my distro.
Okay, well I'll get it from you. Let me know.
I got I emailed Armageddon a little while ago. They just got back to me with their wholesale rates, so
Sick.
I'm gonna get a bunch of Armageddon stuff in stock soon.
So I've been trying to like find shit to drink that isn't alcoholic, right? I've been drinking some kombucha, like a dirty hippie. And one of the bigger kombucha companies, GTs, they're putting their like feelers into other types of beverages that aren't kombucha, but they're still like probiotic type drinks.
Okay.
So this is like a soda that they're doing now called Alive. And this is their root beer flavored, but they do a root beer, a cola, a cider, and a turmeric flavored one. But the thing is that they put mushrooms in these beverages. So this has reishi mushroom, chaga, and turkey tail in it.
Okay.
So far, the ones that I've had have been really good. I haven't had the root beer one yet, so we'll see. I've had the cola and the cider at this point. But I got started on this mushroom kick because I bought some coffee a while back, which had not all of these same mushrooms in it, but it had reishi and turkey tail in it, I believe, and another type of mushroom. And it was really fucking good. Some of the best coffee I've had. And it really like, I drink a lot of coffee. So the caffeination, or the caffeine, is that a word?
Caffeination. That's okay. I'll accept it. I don't know.
Okay. I think it's a word, but when you say it out loud, it sounds kind of weird. Now I'm thinking maybe it's not a word, and I've been wrong a long time.
Welcome to Caffeination.
At any rate, so the caffeine that I generally go to coffee for doesn't do a whole lot for me. But some of the finer points of these mushrooms is they're supposed to help you focus a lot better. And it actually seemed to work. I don't know if it was maybe just like power of suggestion, like after reading the description, convincing myself that it was in fact working, but I feel like it did. So I've been trying these drinks, and we'll see. This is the root beer. Smells like root beer. Very nice. Effervescent.
We having a Aaron the Metal Theologian moment here.
It's good. Probably not my favorite of the three that I've had now.
I get tons of targeted advertising, particularly on Instagram, that's like, I switched out my coffee for this weird green mushroom drink, and it's better because,
I would never recommend switching out your coffee for something entirely different that's not coffee.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the brand, but like it's like Wonderkind coffee or something like that. Wonder Room. It was really good. It was good. I bought it because it was on like big sale. Because normally, like I think a 12-ounce bag of that stuff runs like $22 at the store down the street from me.
Nice.
And I'm not spending $22 on a 12-ounce bag of coffee. But it was on sale for like, I think it was like $10 off for like a week at that store. So I bought a couple bags, and I liked it. I dug it. It's good.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely get advertisements for that, but I'm always kind of like, oh, I'll try it, and then I mean, obviously the price tag's definitely going to turn me away. Although,
let's say not a drink for Jason Hook, but for all other rational people who like hot beverages, it's great.
Well, you got to understand the thing about New Englanders. It'll be particularly in the Boston area. I've really got this, but you'll go. Everybody drinks Dunks. There's Dunkin' Donuts every 3 feet. Um, you're definitely the enemy if you drink Starbucks. And
I mean, I don't drink fucking Starbucks here,
that are
man. And it's like Starbucks
to Boston. It doesn't matter. It can be -3 degrees. What's up?
I was gonna say I don't drink Starbucks here, and this is like the headquarters of Starbucks, home base, man. Like Starbucks is foul, man.
That's I mean, they're both terrible, just in different ways, really. I kind of do prefer Dunkin' Donuts at this stage in my life. I like a non-flavored black iced Dunkin' Donuts coffee when it's hot.
I buy Folgers, man. I still buy Folgers on occasion. Like if I'm really feeling the clinch from waiting for the paycheck, like you'll find some Folgers in the fucking cabinet.
That's all we drink here in this household at Ground Zero Salem.
Nice.
Folgers is in your cup. Okay. It's the best part of waking up. But
you like their new marketing campaign where they play the "I don't give a damn about my reputation"? Like
it's Joan Jett.
Yeah.
But yeah, New Englanders will drink iced Dunkachinos and iced Dunks coffee in like -degree weather. They'll have the special like koozie thing specifically for Dunks coffee that they use with every.
Is that so their hands don't get cold when they're holding the drink?
Yeah, so their hands don't get cold, and so their drink stays cold, and like they're always stained and dirty. Like they have these koozie things, and it's always like, I'm gonna go get some scratchies, and it's like this fucking weird like pink koozie thing with the Dunks logo. It's man, I miss New England. I really do. Miss New England a lot.
I mean, every place has its own thing, I guess. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure like when this premieres, Jason will be sitting there nodding along, like, "Yep."
Yeah. He'll probably be chatting about it too, like just.
I'm sure.
100%, Pat.
You know it. Speaking of industrial-ish stuff, the
lotion. You finally got that.
I haven't been able to really dedicate a lot of attention to this yet. I have it on Bandcamp too, so I should be spinning it digitally here and there. But I gave it one or two good playthroughs, and it didn't grab me at first. I was kind of like, "What the fuck?" but it grew on me very quickly. I'm definitely enjoying this.
I think I like the previous record better, but that record's really good. Like I like it a lot.
It is. It's good. So
the previous record had like some anarcho-punk vibes that one is kind of missing, I feel like. But other than like the packaging and the visual presentation definitely has a bit of that anarcho-punk sort of sense to it. But like the previous record had that in the music as well, so I kind of latched onto that. So the first time I heard that new one, I was a little bit taken aback as well because it didn't sound quite like what I was remembering from the other record. But I like it a lot. That's awesome.
It's like it'd be a stretch to call it industrial, but it definitely has some of those ingredients. It's like
I have industrial elements. Like it's as industrial, I think, as Babyland. Like honestly, but
I don't know Babyland, so.
Oh well, you should get on knowing Babyland.
Okay.
They do a really good cover of They do a really good cover of a Madonna song. Coming Up for Your Love.
Oh, okay.
What is it? Coming Up for Your Love? It's whatever for your love. Like it's hilarious. It's hilarious, but it's also a really good cover. Like it's funny as fuck, especially since they change around some of the lyrics. I think to the benefit of the song. It's good shit.
Yeah.
I think you would dig it. I have one of their albums on record. It was put out by Flipside Records of all labels back in the 90s.
Oh, so they're an older band. It's like they're
not current.
Okay, it's industrial though, or industrial-ish kind of stuff.
Yes, they use like homemade instruments.
Oh, okay, like Missing Foundation kind of style, or
yeah, a little bit.
Okay,
definitely. I've seen them live a couple times back in the 90s. Fucking just cool band, cool vibes, cool dudes. They were friends with my roommate's band. This is how they got hooked up with shows up here. But yeah, it's good times.
Nice.
One of those bands I will always recommend to anybody that has even a passing interest in industrial music.
I do have a passing interest.
I know you do. I know this about you.
I mean, it's so crazy because that like those few years in high school, I was so into it, and then like completely dropped off for like quite a while. I mean,
That's happened to me.
I'll always go back to Skinny Puppy, you know, and
Yeah.
And there's one Fetus record that I absolutely adore, and I don't really care about anything else. JG
I like to upset the Fetus fans by calling them Foetus because it's pronounced Fetus. It's Foetus. I say it the way it's spelled.
You could also upset them by just being like, I like his work on the Venture Brothers more than any of the
I prefer the Foetus with Raymond Watts involved. Pig is better. Which is I don't believe that to be true. Like I like some Pig, but I don't think Pig is better than Fetus.
Yeah, I never really got into Pig at all. I just know the name in passing. Yeah, who was I? I was into a bunch of bands in that style back then, but like a lot of them kind of lost to the sands of time. Like I was really into ChemLab, you know, like
ChemLab didn't age very well.
No, they don't seem like a band that would.
I think I want to say there's one of those guys is like sketchy now too. From what I remember somebody saying like recently, like I could be wrong. I might be wrong. I don't want to like cast stones incorrectly here. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was somebody else that I heard somebody saying that about, but I think it was ChemLab.
Could be.
Because they don't come up in conversation very often, and they got a pretty memorable name.
That's true.
ChemLab.
Like
we're edgy. I just remember the one record with like the anime chick with the gun.
That's not really narrowing it down. There are a lot of those back in the day. There are a lot of those now. It's kind of coming back.
Yeah.